Today on Riffs, Beards, and Gear, we talk about reamping. Welcome to the reamp tutorial. Now, I will be referring to terms and terminology and DI boxes and that kind of stuff, which I have already covered in a prior video of DI box tutorials and just general DI box goodness. So if you have not watched that, I highly suggest you go and watch that first and then come on back. Let's get started. What is reamping? Reamping is playing a digitally captured guitar signal in this case, and we're going to play it back through the amp out of our computer and then record the results as if you were playing and plugged directly into the amp like a traditional recording situation. Now, the advantages of reamping are several. One, you don't have to worry about your tone when you're tracking. You can focus on your performance and worry about the tones later. Second, it also allows you to critique your playing closer. Third, if you're in an actual professional studio situation, you can record your parts and then go home and let the producer reamp guitars while you go and drink beers and make fun of your bass player. I like that part. First, let's talk about the gear that you will need in order to reamp, and you will need certain pieces of hardware. First and foremost, you need a reamp box. Now, a reamp box is the opposite of a DI box. It does the opposite in every way, shape, and form. A DI box converts a high impedance unbalanced signal into a low impedance balanced signal, and this converts a low impedance balanced signal into an unbalanced high impedance signal, which is the signal that comes out of the output jack of your guitar. Second, you will need an interface. Now, an interface such as this one will work. Now, this is a Focusrite 2i4. Now, this has only 2 1/4-inch outputs for the monitors. Now, in your particular DAW, you can make and route your mix through one output only and use the second output to go out to the amp. I am not going to cover that because that is dependent entirely on the DAW that you're running, and we don't have time to cover all of the DAWs in existence. So for this purpose, I will be covering the interface that I have, and that is a Focusrite Sapphire Pro 40, and that is a multiple output interface that has lots and lots of 1/4-inch outputs, which we will use one of, to route the signal out of the interface and into the amp. So this is my song. The tracks in green are the actual DI tracks that I have already recorded by plugging my guitar into my interface input, and I tracked to a click. Everything's nice and tight. Sounding good for DIs. And here's what the actual raw DIs sound like. Now, this is the left and right guitar. So obviously, we need to put those DI tracks into an amp, and here's how we'll do it. So first, I am muting one of the tracks. I obviously don't want to put both of the DI tracks into the amp at the same time. They need to be tracked separately because I'm only one person and the amp sounds weird and it sounds horrible. So no, before you guys ask, you cannot put 2 guitar tracks through one guitar amp at the same time. Don't try it. So I'm going to mute the right guitar and I'm going to solo the left. Now, I'm in my DAW, and this is Logic Pro X. I am going to pipe it out to my reamp box, and that is my mono output number 3 for this example. Now, for all intents and purposes, think of the reamp box as your guitar. So I'm going to plug the output of my interface. It's an XLR, it's balanced, into the reamp. And then from the reamp, I'm going to plug my guitar cable into the reamp box and into the guitar amp, which in this case is a PV65 34 unboosted. Now I have the PV going into a torpedo 2 notes live for this example. However, this would be the exact same if I had a cab and microphone and I simply set the input to the microphone input that I'm using on my interface on my reamp track, which is my second track labeled RA left, which is reamp left. And I'm going to set the input to input 6, which is the input where the 2 notes is going into. Now, since this is soloed, we're only going to hear the guitar track, and we're going to listen back and we're going to see how it sounds. Now, I've already set up a tone. It sounds good. I'm going to arm my reamp track by hitting the R in this case. I'm going to start at the beginning, and I'm simply going to hit record and let it do its thing. Now I'm going to set the output for the right-hand DI track to also go out to the amp. And I've made sure the left-hand track is muted, and we're not going to solo the track this time. I'm going to let it play so we can hear it in real time. And that is it. Now, a few tips. When you're recording DIs, your levels really don't matter. Now, a lot of people might argue with me, but your levels on your DI are whatever you want them to be, as long as they do not clip. And what I mean by clipping is exceeding the input headroom of your particular interface. You want to see lots of dynamic waves in your DI. You don't want to see just a flat bar. That is bad. and you're probably doing something wrong. And we've covered the input pads on the DI video. Again, I highly suggest you go watch that. And also, with most interfaces, keep in mind your output signal, your DI signal going out of your interface into your reamp box is still affected by your master volume on your interface. So even if you have everything zeroed out in your DAW, the track going out of your interface is still affected by the master volume. So if you don't have your master volume on your interface all the way up, you are cutting volume and cutting signal from your DI. So keep that in mind. No one ever told me that when I was learning how to reamp, and I had to figure that out for myself. And it's nowhere in the nomenclature for any manual on any interface ever. And if you don't have a DI box or a reamp box, you can also get this bad boy right here. And this is a 2 notes reload, torpedo reload. And this is a DI box, a reamp box with signal level matching and a speaker soak for your amp as well. It's really an all-in-one useful studio tool. So there are options out there, but really all you need is an interface and a $100 reamp box. Hope you enjoyed the tutorial. I hope you learned something. And if you have any questions, feel free to leave them down below in the comments. And until next time, fluff out.